My dad wore a mesh veil and kept honeybees for 7 years, but what he harvested wasn't honey. It was every private moment of me and my little sister from our bedroom to the bathroom. I thought he was just eccentric, harmless. I thought my mom didn't know. I thought my family was a little weird, maybe, but not sick. Until the day I found the cameras and realized mom helped him install every single one. In today's video, you'll hear a chilling true story about a father who turned a hobby into a disguise and a mother who believed watching her daughters was better than holding them. If you've ever felt like someone might be watching you, you might not be imagining it. Stick around to the end, because the way this story ends won't just shock you. It'll make you ask yourself, does real love require surveillance? Chapter 1. The Beekeeper. Father and the Secrets in the Backyard. I used to think my dad was eccentric but harmless. You know, the type of guy with odd hobbies who does things a little extra? For example, beekeeping. My dad had a full white protective suit with a mesh hood, giant wooden boxes in our backyard, and he would spend hours sitting there like he could talk to the bees. Whenever I asked what he was doing, he'd nod and say, studying hive behavior. Sounded scientific. I was 14 then, and my little sister Emma was only 11. We both thought dad was just your average bee guy, nothing more. He'd bring homemade honey to PTA meetings. He gave school presentations on pollination. One of my teachers once said, Sophia, your dad is such a gift to the community. If I had told her back then, my dad's secretly filming me while I sleep change and shower, she probably would have called the police. But I didn't say anything. Because back then, I didn't know. And the worst part, my mother did know. And she helped him do it. Back then, I just noticed a few strange things. Like how my dad always seemed to know things he shouldn't. One time I told my best friend Mia about my crush on Jake Thompson, a classmate, during a sleepover. We whispered in my bedroom with the door closed. The next morning, Dad poured orange juice in the kitchen and casually said, Jake, that boy's got shifty eyes. You should focus on more than puppy love. I froze. I hadn't told anyone else except Mia and Mom. But Mom never talked boys with Dad. Another time Emma was practicing piano for her school recital. Her bedroom door was shut tight, and yet at dinner, Dad commented on the exact notes she messed up. Not vaguely note for note. I started to get suspicious. But you know how it is. Sometimes it's easier to doubt yourself than to doubt your parents. I thought, maybe he just walked past the room. Or maybe the walls are thin. I wanted to believe I was overthinking. That's the first price of growing up in a house. With secrets, you begin to doubt your own instincts. Everything changed one Thursday afternoon. I was looking for my cheap iPhone. It had fallen somewhere in the backyard. I figured maybe it landed near Dad's beehives. So I walked into the wooden shed he called his bee behavior research station. In a corner, I spotted a plastic box that looked like an insect observation kit with a tiny lens. I leaned in. And that's when I saw a camera. Not a regular webcam. This was a slick black micro camera no bigger than a coat button, the kind you only see in spy movies. And it wasn't pointed at bees. It was aimed directly at my bedroom window. Thin wires ran from it through the shed wall connected to an electrical setup. My heart pounded. I backed away, whispering to myself, no way. But do you know what really made my skin crawl? Written in thick marker on the side of the camera case. Reactions. Sophia's room. 9 p.m. I didn't say anything that day. I went back to my room, acted normal. Ate dinner, listened to Dad ramble about honey and pollen. I counted down the seconds until Saturday, his usual Beekeepers Club day. He'd be out all morning. When he left, I grabbed the spare shed key, one I had stolen from the garage toolbox weeks earlier. My hands shook as I slid it into the lock. I stepped inside. The air was muggy, filled with the smell of old honey and damp wood. But what suffocated me wasn't the smell. It was the two laptops running on a small table. Each screen showed multiple video feeds, one of my room, one of Emma's, one of the bathroom, and one of the hallway outside our bedrooms. I clicked on a folder labeled 112XX Midnight. There it was, me asleep, recorded from the top corner of my room. Nightlight blinking. Eyes shut. Hair spread across the pillow. I nearly vomited. That's when I knew this wasn't about safety monitoring. This was something darker. Something deep and endless, like falling into a pit with no bottom. I shut the laptops. Didn't touch anything else. Backed out of that shed like a thief. But really, I was the one being stolen from. The next day, I waited for Mom to leave for yoga class. I walked into the garage where Dad was cleaning beekeeping tools. I stood there, heart pounding. But I had to say it. I found the camera, Dad. He looked up. Not startled, not shocked. Just smiled. Calmly. Casually. Oh, those just to monitor nearby hive activity. Bees are attracted to human pheromones. It's pointed at my room. Well, teenage girls like bees have unique chemical reactions. Totally normal observation. Listening to him talk felt like someone twisting something sharp in my brain. He spoke like a biology professor, no guilt, no shame. When Mom got home, I told her everything. I expected her to be horrified, but instead, she sided with him. Dad pulled out a tablet, showed her articles about bee behavior monitoring, and claimed I was stressed from school and imagining things. Mom just sighed and said, "Maybe you should stay off social media for a while. Your dad's only trying to protect you, Sophia." That was the day I realized I was living in a prison built of honey love and lies, and my parents were the wardens. Chapter 2. She knew everything, and she helped. I used to believe that if something truly terrible ever happened to me, my mom would be the first to protect me. You know, the kind of mom everyone dreams of, gentle, overly concerned, cutting fruit into star shapes for lunch, kissing you goodnight. My mom used to be like that. But that afternoon when I confronted my dad and told him I had found the cameras, had watched the recordings of myself, my mom just stood there, holding a glass of orange juice. Not blinking. Not a single word of protest. That's when I knew that woman was no longer my mother. And what broke me the most wasn't her silence. It was the only thing she did say, "Sophia, you're exaggerating." Dad didn't even need to defend himself. Mom did it for him. She said the cameras were for safety monitoring because kids today are too secretive, too fragile. That knowing what your child is doing helps you intervene before something bad happens that you'll understand when you're a mother. I looked at her. Her face didn't even blush with shame. She genuinely believed what she was saying. Or worse, she pretended to believe it. I didn't sleep that night. Emma thought I was being punished for failing a chemistry test. She asked, "Are you okay? Did Mom and Dad fight again?" I looked at her small, innocent face, and then a horrifying thought hit me. If there were cameras in my room, there were probably cameras in hers too. And if there were cameras in her room, then she'd been filmed while changing, sleeping, crying. My chest went cold. I took a deep breath and whispered, "Emma, have you noticed anything strange in your room? Like new stuff? Or something in the vents?" She blinked. "What are you talking about?" I knew I couldn't let her stay in that blissful illusion anymore. I grabbed a flashlight, took her to her room, and showed her what I had found. An air vent looked totally normal, but when I unscrewed the grate, there it was. A tiny hidden camera lodged deep inside, pointing directly at her bed. Emma froze. Her lips tightened, and after a long pause, she whispered like she was afraid of her own words. "Dad saw me change." I nodded. And for the first time in my life, I saw my little sister grow up in a second. The kind of growing up that hurts, that no one chooses. She hugged me, sobbed. I wanted to tell Mom. I believed she would finally understand when she knew Emma had been filmed too. But then Emma, who still ran to Mom's bed during nightmares, was the one who grabbed my hand and said, "We can't tell Mom. She wasn't even shocked yesterday." That sentence from an 11-year-old was the final confirmation I needed. We arrived at school the next morning like two ghosts, and as soon as we got there, I dragged Emma straight to the counselor's office. Ms. Aaliyah, a thin, middle-aged woman who always wore butterfly hair clips, was the first adult to believe us without hesitation. She didn't ask, "Are you sure?" She didn't say, "Maybe it's a misunderstanding." She just looked at the photos I took from the shed, the video files I had copied from Dad's computer, and nodded. "I'm calling Child Protective Services right now. You two stay here. Don't go anywhere." That afternoon, the police came to our house. Mom nearly lost it, screaming that it was all a misunderstanding, that the girls were mentally poisoned by the internet, that their father was conducting scientific research. And Dad, he was as calm as ever. He led the officers into the shed. No resistance. He unplugged the equipment one by one, explained each like he was giving a museum tour, light reaction camera, temperature monitoring system for hive behavior. It sounded like a science fair, but the police weren't convinced. They found a hard drive hidden inside an empty honey jar, a backup laptop stored in a fake beehive, and most importantly, thousands of hours of video labeled and categorized with folders like Emma, changing clothes, Sophia, bathroom. Friday night, I didn't need to watch them. Just reading those folder names made me want to vomit. Dad was arrested on the spot. Mom screamed like we'd just murdered someone. "You're destroying our family. These kids, they've been poisoned. They don't understand their own father." At that moment, I looked back at her, the woman I once thought would die to protect us, and there she was, protecting the man who had secretly filmed his daughter's changing clothes for 7 years. That night, we were taken to Aunt Linda's house, Mom's sister. She didn't ask a lot of questions. She just said, "You don't have to be strong with me. Cry if you want." Emma cried herself to sleep in my arms, and me, I just stared at the ceiling thinking, how long have we lived with monsters and never known Swunter? 3. The trial, the sentence, and a second betrayal. I used to think the trial would be the ending. You know what I mean? The movie kind of ending where the villain is handcuffed, the hero is applauded, and the world is set right again. I naively believed we survived, now we would be free. But the courtroom is not like the movies. The courtroom is where you're invited to stand in the middle of a room full of strangers and recount the most private wounds of your life while listening to others twist them around like you're making it all up. 6 weeks after the arrest, the first hearing was held. I remember every detail. Emma wore a purple dress, the one Mom picked out for her last birthday. On the way to court, she looked at me and asked if Mom knew, and stayed silent. Does that make her guilty? I didn't have an answer. I just squeezed her hand and promised I won't let anyone hurt you today. I didn't realize the next one to hurt us would be our mother. She took the witness stand. The white light from the ceiling made her look smaller, hair curled neatly, tears ready to fall. I thought she would keep denying everything. I thought she'd blame it all on Dad, but she didn't. Her voice trembled, her eyes were red, and then she said, "I knew. Since Sophia was 7, I helped him choose the location for the first camera." The air shattered. Emma gripped my hand so tight my fingers turned purple. I felt the ground slip under me. My whole body trembled, not from rage, but from disgust. She continued, each word another dagger. "My sister Annie was abused when she was little. She lived her entire life, traumatized. I swore I would never let that happen to my daughters. I believed that if I always watched, I could stop the worst from happening." Sounds reasonable, right? A scared mother. Protecting her children by monitoring them, like putting a camera on your bike to keep it from being stolen. Except these were humans, children, their most private moments. And she didn't just monitor, she silently watched our bodies change, grow, and cry without ever stopping, without ever warning us, without ever apologizing until she got caught. Emma threw up right there in the courtroom. I had to pull her from her seat and rush to the bathroom. The smell of a disinfectant cold white tiles and the sound of her sobbing into my arms. When I looked up, a woman walked in, Mom's best friend, Janet Lips, pursed with pity. She said, "Your mother was just trying to protect you. You kids don't understand a mother's fear." I don't know what expression I gave her, but Janet backed off. Maybe she saw something in my eyes that wasn't pain anymore, but fire. That afternoon, Aunt Linda took us to a diner near the courthouse. We just wanted to be far away from the whispering courtroom people. And then Grandma walked in, Dad's mother, the one who had stayed silent since day one, the one who came to every court session but never once approached us. She sat down and quietly placed an envelope in front of me. Inside was $500 in cash. For school supplies and therapy, she said. I didn't know whether to thank her or throw it back in her face, but I stuffed it in my coat pocket. Emma needed therapy, and I was too tired to hold on to pride. Back in court, it only got worse. They showed receipts for camera purchases dated back to my 5th birthday. The memo on one read, "Happy birthday. Protect your daughter. A birthday cake candle with a hidden camera inside. Perfect." Then came the data logs. Turns out Mom didn't just check the footage when she was worried. She watched hours of it every night, while I slept, while I wrote in my journal, while Emma tried on new dresses Mom had bought, while Emma overslept and rushed to the bathroom, and still Mom stood there crying, saying it was out of love, that without watching us she couldn't sleep at night, that the footage let her see who her daughters really were. The judge nodded. Jurors looked at each other. Some wiped away tears. And I sat there silently wondering if I hadn't spoken up, would Mom have kept watching me? Until the day I gave birth. The session ended in chaos. Half the room believed my mother was just a loving mom who went too far. The other half, like me, knew that love should never make you want to puke from shame. Chapter 4, Social Media Lies and Silent Backlash. I used to think the worst was over, that once Dad was arrested and Mom confessed the rest, though painful would be recovery. But you know what? Sometimes courtrooms aren't as terrifying as the internet. The next morning, the top story on our local news was Daughters Betrayed. Mom charged with monitoring her children for 7 years under the guise of protection. My mother's tear-streaked face dominated the screen. And Emma and I, though our faces were blurred, anyone from school could recognize my purple coat and Emma's backpack with the soccer team logo. I got over 50 messages that morning. Most of them weren't checking in. By noon, a new Facebook group had been created. Its name, Mothers Who Protect, Misunderstood, and Vilified. The profile picture Mom smiling faintly during her 2018 talk on internet safety for children. In the description, the group's creator wrote, "A mother who loved her daughters wholeheartedly, betrayed by a rebellious, selfish teen, poisoned by social media." The first post had over 300 shares in 2 hours. I opened the comment section, hands shaking with rage. Kids today are so ungrateful. If I were her mom, I'd install cameras too. They hide everything these days, acting like they're 30 when they're barely 15. Someone even dug up an old Instagram post from when I was 15 where I had captioned a photo, "Prison vibes, warden parents, LOL." Now it was being used as proof that I was a disturbed teen. At school, I became a shadow. Friends whispered behind my back. Some avoided me like I was the reason their parents were now being questioned. Others looked at me like they wanted to say, "You should be grateful." Better cameras than getting assaulted. I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I quietly logged onto a school library computer and started digging. I looked up everything: guardianship, legal rights, privacy laws. I read state statutes, precedent cases. I studied how to record legally, how to store evidence. I wasn't just the hurt daughter anymore. I was becoming the only person left who could protect the truth. Meanwhile, Mom began her counterattack. From the detention center, she hired a new lawyer, a slick guy with a radio announcer voice. He held a small press conference saying, "We believe this is a tragic misunderstanding. A mother with anxiety trying to protect her children after childhood trauma." Sound familiar? He added evidence shows Sophia violated curfews, engaged in inappropriate social interactions. Her mother didn't invade her privacy. She tried to save her daughter from herself. I laughed. Save me? By filming me changing my clothes. Soon after, I discovered my tuition bank account had been frozen. I couldn't withdraw any money. Why? Because it was a co-owned account, requiring my mother's signature. When Aunt Linda called the bank, she was told her attorney requested a temporary freeze due to a family legal dispute. Emma needed therapy, but our health insurance, still under Mom's name. We were being financially strangled while Mom was being praised by an army of loving mother defenders. One day I received a handwritten letter from Mom. Not an apology. But this, I don't blame you. I only regret that you don't understand I did it out of love. I will always watch over you however I can. I shivered. Watch over those words. Weren't accidental. For the first time, Emma didn't even cry. She just sat there staring at the computer screen where the latest post from that Facebook group read, Emma is a victim of her sister, not of her mother. I didn't cry either. I started recording, archiving, setting traps. I pretended to reconcile with Janet, Mom's best friend. I invited her for coffee, talked about how I missed Mom, how empty everything felt. I asked, does Mom still have a copy of the hard drive? Emma remembers some happy moments. Maybe I should rewatch a few. Janet took the bait. She said, oh, your mom backed everything up on a silver USB. It's in the old music box on the bookshelf? I smiled, clicked stop recording on the mic in my jacket. If Mom wanted to use surveillance to control my life, then now I would use evidence to reclaim it. Chapter 5. The Watcher Gets Watched, and the Final Awakening. I used to think that exposing my mother would feel like winning, but it didn't. What I felt instead was a terrifying emptiness. You see, when the person who's been watching you ends up being watched, you don't feel victorious. You realize you've stepped right into the moral swamp you once hated. I wasn't the same dreamy girl folding paper planes in class anymore. I had become the kind of person who hid a microphone inside a Christmas gift box, scented like Mom's favorite perfume, just to record what she told her lawyer. I was the one who called Janet at midnight, pretending to sob while asking, do you think Mom would forgive me if I testified for her? Lying came naturally now, because I had learned truthful people lose. During an expanded investigation, the police discovered cloud backups saved by my mother. One file was titled, Emma, Unstable, Needs Close Monitoring. Inside was Mom's voice calmly instructing Dad on how to position the camera so it doesn't catch the ceiling light reflection. Not a trace of emotion, not a second of hesitation. At a smaller hearing, I sat across from Mom again, this time no tears, no collapse. She was cold, composed. Her lawyer asked me, Miss Sophia, is it true that at 16 you snuck out of your bedroom window to meet a boyfriend? I swallowed hard, nodded. They immediately showed a printed photo from a neighbor's security camera, me climbing out the window on a summer night. Then the lawyer continued. If not for the cameras, your mother never would have known. Isn't that a safety concern? I wanted to scream. The danger wasn't the boyfriend, it was the guardian who secretly filmed me changing just to catch that. Emma had grown quieter. She still went to therapy, still chuckled at cartoons, but she jumped every time she heard the printer whir because it reminded her of the sound Mom's surveillance software made late at night. One evening, Emma asked me if Mom truly believed she was protecting us. Does that make her a bad person? And honestly, I didn't know what to say. Then we found something else. Emma's journal hidden in a drawer in Mom's room, a small notebook filled with her childish handwriting. Today I changed behind the curtain because I think Mom is watching. But if she is, she'll see I'm not hiding anything. And if she's not, then I feel a little sad because it means no one cares. Emma used to find comfort in being watched because she believed that's what love looked like. I felt like my spine had just snapped in half. Grandma kept sending money, no calls, no visits, just plain envelopes left at Aunt Linda's door. Inside were receipts for paid therapy sessions and little notes like, "You don't have to forgive my son, but don't let Emma skip her treatment." I wasn't sure if she was trying to redeem her son, her granddaughters, or her own conscience. Later in court, it came out that my mother had hired a family surveillance expert months before the cameras were discovered, which meant she had planned her escape route long before getting caught. I remember thinking she wasn't manipulated. She was the director. Time moved on. I started attending a new school far from our old town. No one there knew I was the girl whose parents filmed her for 7 years. There, Emma was just a freshman art major, and I was the girl who worked part-time at Mr. Abbott's bookstore. And that was enough. I still had the habit of checking corners when I entered any new room. Still glanced at the ceiling for strange vents or blinking lights, but I no longer tensed up when I heard a switch click. I didn't flinch when someone said, "I'm doing this for your own good." Our new apartment was tiny but bright. White walls, no shadows, no hidden lenses. Emma insisted on taking the room with the big uncovered window. She said, "If the light can come in, then no one needs to spy anymore." That sentence stuck in my chest. My little sister had grown up. Not the way anyone hoped, but she had. On our first shopping trip for the new place, Emma pushed me toward the home security camera section. I froze, but she just smiled and said, "We don't need these. Not because they're scary, but because we don't have to prove we're safe anymore." She picked a painting instead of a device. We hung it on the wall that used to be covered in childhood scribbles. It was the first time I saw her draw an open door. Mom still writes us letters. Legally, she's allowed one a month through her lawyer. At first, I didn't want to read them, but Emma did. Eventually, she read every word, learning to forgive without forgetting. One afternoon, Emma painted a room. Two girls inside, one sitting by a window with sunlight pouring in, the other lying on the bed holding her hand. I asked, "What's this one called?" She smiled and said, "No name. It's just, I survived." Chapter 6. Our sunrise has no cameras. There's something strange about healing. It never arrives like a beam of light. There's no epic background music, no grand door opening to paradise, no one stepping in to say, "Congratulations, you've made it." Healing for me was realizing. This morning I woke up and didn't think about cameras. Nearly 2 years after the final trial, Emma and I moved to a small town, 3 hours away from the old city. No one here knew us as the girls whose parents spied on them. Here, Emma was just a freshman art student, and I was a part-timer at Mr. Abbott's bookstore. And somehow that was enough. I still had the habit of checking corners when I walked into a new room. Still instinctively glanced at the ceiling for strange lights or oddly placed vents, but I no longer flinched at the clicking sound of a light switch. I had stopped bracing every time someone said, "I'm only doing this for your own good." Our new apartment was small but filled with light. White walls, no shadows, no cameras. Emma insisted on taking the room with the large, curtainless window. She said, "If the light can come in, no one needs to peek anymore." That sentence hit me hard. The little girl I once protected had grown. Not the way anyone wanted, but she grew. During our first shopping trip for the apartment, Emma steered me toward the aisle with home security cameras. I froze, but she just smiled. "We don't need these. Not because they're bad, but because now we don't need to prove we're safe by staring at a device." She picked out a wall painting instead. We hung it on a wall that once held childhood scribbles. It was the first time I saw Emma draw an open door. Mom still sends letters. By law, she's allowed one per month through her attorney. At first, I didn't want to read them, but Emma did. And eventually, she read every line, learning how to forgive without forgetting. One afternoon, Emma sat in front of her canvas and painted a room. Inside were two girls, one sitting by the window with sunlight pouring and the other lying on a bed, holding her hand. I asked, "What's this one called?" She smiled and replied, "It doesn't need a title. It's just, I survived. I enrolled in college again." Nothing prestigious. I chose adolescent psychology. Sounds ironic, doesn't it? The girl who was watched her whole childhood, now studying how to help other children avoid the same. But I figured if anyone could recognize the warning signs, it'd be me. In our intro class, the professor once asked, what do children need most to feel safe? Most students said, rules, structure, supervision. I raised my hand without hesitation. They need to be trusted. The room fell silent, and I thought, that silence was the most truthful response I'd ever received. I saw Mia again after almost 2 years. We had coffee quietly. No mention of the court. No talk of mom. No reminder that her mother had lost a scholarship because of the mess. Just two girls who had once been best friends, now knowing that some apologies don't need words. Mia handed me a bracelet she had made herself and said, if one day you feel okay again, wear it. I wore it right then. On the day Emma moved into her college dorm, we repainted her old room mint green, her favorite color to paint with. While we were installing the ceiling light, she turned to me and asked, are you sure you don't want to install a camera for safety? I looked up at her. She was smiling. Not mockingly, not angrily, just a soft joke, half hurt, half free. I answered, I've lived an entire life under a lens from now on. I just want to live in real light. The first night in our new apartment, I jolted awake at 3 a.m. drenched in cold sweat. In my dream, I had returned to my old room, the one with the ceiling fan camera where mom used to watch me like a silent movie. But this time when I looked into the lens, I saw myself. I was the one watching. Tired, sleepy, quiet, and I hit delete. I woke up and opened the window. Morning light streamed in. No cameras. No voice telling me to be careful. No one watching except me seeing myself in the mirror. And for the first time in a very long while, I said it out loud, I'm free. Some say parents only do the best they know how. But if the best they knew was installing hidden cameras to film their daughter undressing for 7 years, then maybe love isn't enough. Love isn't surveillance. It isn't control. It isn't staring through a lens and calling it care. Love is being present with your whole heart, not your camera. What about you? Do you think the mother in this story was a victim or an accomplice? Could you forgive someone for filming you for 7 years, or do you believe they were just trying to protect in the wrong way? Tell me your thoughts in the comments. I read everyone. If you believe this story needed to be told, like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss another true story that sometimes is scarier than fiction.